Hey, I'm Dave, and today we're going to talk about editing this picture. There's a lot of complications in this picture. Obviously, we've got tremendous contrast between light and dark, on top of which we're shooting right into the sun. I really like to enhance the difference between the blues and the golds in a Twilight, and that really comes out in this. And also there's a lot of extra editing I did when I put this picture together, and I thought this would be maybe a little bit better example than the one I did yesterday of how to put these different layers together and why you make these different layers, because I really want to see in this area, but I don't really want to show that area. I want to show this area. And I really like this ring of yellow that surrounds this pool. This is one of those places too, I think we all have faced it, where we've got just too many trees and we just have to get these just really ungodly angles to get the back or the feature of the house that we're trying to get. So this was really a compromise of shooting at a really steep angle, and then still trying to get the features in that I wanted. Again, this was a shoot for a pool company. This is not real estate photography, which isn't to say you can't learn something about real estate photography editing from this, but I am going to do a lot of things that you would not do in real estate editing, like removing features and what I consider distractions. To me, I just go crazy on commercial pieces, removing things I consider distractions, like pipes on roofs, stop signs in the distance, anything that detracts from what I consider a beautiful image. I don't want to see everyday items and things that detract from essentially the fantasy image I'm creating. So without any further ado, let's get into this image. So let's start with this image. Believe it or not, that's where we're going to have to go. You can see even in this, the sun is blown out, but that's where we're going to have to start. So let's see, let's bring it up a little bit. I'm seeing this halo and stuff I don't like there, so I'm adjusting the exposure to where I don't see that too very burnt out. All I'm looking at is the sun for this image and the sky. I think that works pretty good. Let's add a little bit of yellow. Let's see, what does vibrance do? You know what, I think a little bit of clarity up there might help a lot too. I want to see some definition in those mountains. Okay, now that sun is starting to look a little bit too much, so I'm going to bring that back. I don't like seeing those rings, and that's what I'm looking for here. I need that sun to look as good as possible without turning into that ungodly looking thing. So I think right about in there is going to be really good. Let's see. Yep, I think that's going to be good. I'm going to go ahead and label that green and move on to my next image. And that's what I consider a base exposure for a Twilight. It's definitely underexposed for normal real estate, but for a Twilight, this is where I like it to be. I guess, if you look at the histogram up here, you'll see it's very much to the right, but in a Twilight, we're going to see a lot of blacks and darks. So let's start adjusting this. What I want to see is just a good, even looking dark exposure. So I'm playing with the contrast now, trying to get those blacks to look full. I want everything to look full. And by that, I just mean, that it's not crushed, like that, where the blacks, there's just no definition at all. If we go to here, we're seeing some definition in the darks. It's definitely lower exposure, but it looks good overall there. And then I'm going to boost the yellows a little bit so that we've got a more sunlight driven image there. And that looks really good. I'm going to make that green. And now I'm going to duplicate this layer because I like the contrast layers. I like the black and white part of this. I like the levels. But I want to make a blue copy of this. So everything is the same. It's just that this is going to go to the blues. And I'm looking here because this is where I know this image is going to be used. So I'm looking there. I'm not caring so much about here because the golden one is going to be used here because this is where I want the focus to be. But all the things I don't want people to look at is going to be used using this bluer thing. I think that's maybe just a titch too blue. I don't want it to be overtly blue, but I do want to see blue in it. And I want it, the blue makes it read darker, if you will. Whereas, you know, I have not changed exposure. Let's go back to the yellow and look at that, how this looks a little bit brighter. It's because of that yellow. I mean, even this, where I'm going to use blue, looks brighter than the blue, even though those are the same contrasts and the same exposures. So anyway, I think those look really good. We're going to go with that. So now we go to what I would consider a medium exposure in typical real estate. And let's bring that up a little bit. And we're going to pretty much do the same thing. You can see this looks really washed out. So we're going to play with contrast to get, again, a good contrast ratio. And then I'm going to bring this a little bit to the yellow side. So again, we've got a little bit of a yellow cast. And I'm really looking at these trees in here. I really want those to pop. And now I'm just going to make a copy of that and turn it blue. That's simple. So the important thing here that I'd like you to think about and remember is I'm using the same image for the yellow and the blue. There is nothing that says that you cannot make multiple copies of the same image to perform different functions within your image. I know in the last video I talked a lot about, you know, planning for the edit. And this is part of it, knowing that you can do this and that you can shoot an exposure and use it either multiple times in multiple different ways or using it to correct for one glaring error, which in this instance would be the sun right there. I know that's not good enough to use either, and that's part of the reason I'm making this video. I'm going to show you how to fix that sun and make that usable. Let me pop over to the final, and there's what I ended up doing with the sun. So it is possible to pull the sun out of this. All right, so let's go back and let's see. This is our sky. This is our low yellow. This is our low blue. This is our high yellow and our high blue. So I'm going to highlight all of those. And then I use a shortcut. I use F10. And that ships it on over to Photoshop, all in that order. It's not the order that I'm going to edit them in. I'm going to change the order, but it works. So I do like to keep the sky level on top. So we're going to leave that there. Let's go ahead. I think I showed this in the last one. I just do select sky, have it select the sky, and then hit the matte button, or the mask button, sorry. And there, I've got that. I'm going to adjust this a little later. You can see if we go into it. It's not a perfect, see, we've got definitely a line there. That's not going to work too well. But for now, that gets things done, so we're going to use that. I may even turn that off just because I find it a little distracting while I'm working with the other layers. So I'm turning that off. My next two layers here are the gold and the blue dark. I like them with the gold on top. I like to start with the blue and then put the gold into the blue. So I do like that order, but I want these two lower. So I'll make those my first two layers. And then now I've got the gold high on top and the blue high right beneath it. So that's the order I want. So going from bottom to top, we've got blue low, gold low, blue high, yellow high, sky. Okay, so now I'm going to turn off the mask because we want to see all 5 layers, and then I hit the auto align button because these all need to align. There we go. I can turn that mask back on, and that looks really lousy between the sky and the lower downs, but no worries, we will fix that. I'm just going to take that out now because I don't need it. And I'm going to put a black mask on every layer all the way down to our blue. So we're going to start with our dark blue. That is our base layer. I'm going to get a brush of about that size. That, in case you're counting, is 700 pixels, but that's all dependent on how big your raw files are, you know. Don't take any numbers I use as exactly what you should use. You should use something that's approximately that big. See how I can cover the area I want to really easily with that? I'm doing a flow of about 16. I want a fairly slow flow so that I can bring this in slowly. So now let's bring in just the pool area. And what should happen is this should start to brighten up and you should start to see this better. And it should stand out in the picture a little bit more. Since this is what we're selling, that's what we want. And we just want this area. Okay, now you may see I'm getting a little wide and I'm getting some of those treetops and they're starting to get that gold look to them. I personally love that. So I'm going to make my brush a little smaller and I'm going to go along the highlights of these trees and just brush in more of that gold. Like that. So that we've got that gold ring around things. And then I am also going to go back into here, even though that's not the focus of things, I still want a little bit of gold in there to make the picture work. You know, you don't want anything in the picture to really scream that you've been working on it. You want things that you do to follow through across the whole picture. I was going to say about this layer here. I didn't paint, or this yellow coming off of that roof there. There's not a whole lot I can do about that. So I'm just going to leave that be and let it happen. I don't particularly like it. I find it a little distracting, but there's not a whole lot I could do without going crazy. So I'm just going to leave that. You can also shift and click on these masks and see what that mask looks like at full strength, or what that layer looks like at full strength, and see if there's any things that you want to pick up with that. I think I want to pick up a little bit more in here, down here. So we have gone from that blue to this gold overlay, and you can see that looks a lot better, I think. Now we're going to the blue high level, and what I'm going to use this for is to fill in the shadows of the shadow areas where I want to see some more definition, like along this fence line right there. See, I can see that now. It still looks shadowy, even though it's a bright exposure. It's because of that blue. I want to see in these shadows here. I want to see a little bit in those shadows there. So I just kind of fill in the darks where I want the darks to be a little bit brighter. It's essentially dodging and burning. This house here and all of these, I'm just going to leave. I don't care about that. I do want this house to show up a little bit more though too, and the roof of this house. So I'm going to paint that in a little bit brighter. And you know what? We're going to do that with the yellow, but let's go ahead and first start bringing in some blue here just so that our base layer is brighter. Part of the things that we're trying to do too is to bring our light levels up gradually. You know, we don't want them to just have a hard line and get real bright like it does up here in the sun, because that's what happens. So if you bring it in gradually like this in the layers, it looks a lot more natural. Okay, now let's go to the gold and let's bring that in more here. We're going to get the face of the house because that reflects. And then all of this in there. And these trees behind. And a little bit along those trees. We're going to be really judicious with our use here. Just little bits here and there. Did I bring in blue there? Yeah, oops, I don't like that. Control Z, and that takes that out. There we go. All right, believe it or not, that is pretty good. Now let's put on that top layer. And obviously that ridge line just looks horrible. And I'm just going to paint that in. And that looks really good. Now that looks natural for the rest of the picture. And it gives us some depth, and we can see into that area all we want. All right, so that looks really good. Now, let's fix that sun. A new layer. I'm going to take and make my brush a little bit bigger than that sun. And I'm going to grab the color of the sun. It's really important that you use the color of the sun because we'll be riffing essentially off of that same color. We want to stay with that same color. So that's where our color is. We're going to go a little lighter than that. We're just going to go round, and we're still a very diffuse brush. So we're just going to pop that in there and get rid of some of that white and just fill that in a little bit, not a whole lot. Next, we're going to go back and we're going to go even lighter. And then we're going to make our circle even smaller. And we're going to go brighter in the center. And then we're going to go and we're going to go even brighter. Still not to white, but to almost white. We're going to go even smaller. That's about the size of the sun right there. But here, we're going to take the hardness all the way up. And again, we're just going to do this really lightly, dead centered in there. And that looks a little bit too hard and a little bit too big. I'm going to make it a little smaller. And I'm going to bring down the hardness just a tiny bit. And I'm going to bring down the flow a whole bunch. Because it just needs to be a whisper in there. It needs to be like a super secret. So there, one little click. There, do you see it? It's really hard to see. It's really subtle. Let's do one more. That's a little bit too much. So I'm going to bring down the opacity just a little bit on the layer. Nope. That's not going to do it. Let's Control Z out of that. And let's just leave it like there. That's just one of the suns, not two. And there we go. And now that looks a whole lot better than that burnt out hole that we had earlier. So that pretty much wraps up the basic level of editing on this image. So at this point, I'll just hit Command S and save it back to Lightroom. Okay, here we are back in Lightroom, and I'm just making a couple of really quick adjustments by eye. Mainly just highlights and shadows to get my contrast again where I want it to be. I kind of feel that this side of the house is a little bit too bright. Well, here's a cool trick. Let's just go and edit in Photoshop. And then when you get this, hit Edit Original. Watch this. This is pretty cool. We get the layers back. So I can re-edit that and just go to this side of the house, go to a black brush, and bring this down just a little bit so it's not quite as bright. This is called non-destructive editing, and this is the way I recommend you edit. Just in case you ever do notice a problem like this, you can go back and fix it. So now I'll hit Control S and we'll just go back to Lightroom again. Here we are editing this again. Let's bring the exposure up a little bit. And now you can see that side of the house looks a lot more natural. Let's mess with our shadows and see. We want to deepen those shadows a little bit. And let's see the highlights. I don't really want any highlights. I want it right about in there. Blacks, I sometimes crush those, especially for a Twilight. I don't think there's anything wrong with crushing your blacks in Twilight. Bring up our vibrance a little. And now let's tweak our verticals. Verticals are horrible. I like to use something that's very to the left and very to the right. I know this is left, this is right. Okay, I'm dumb. So there's a swing set here or a playground set or something like that. I can use that to roughly estimate my vertical. I don't need exact verticals on this, especially on this side. If I just use that to base them on and get it rough, we're going to be fine. If you've got an actual building there, you would want to use the building to grab your verticals. And then I'm going to use this little rain gutter there. I can use that zoom in loop tool right there. Click it at the top, release it at the bottom, and I know that's vertical. Sometimes I'm losing a lot to the left and right here, and I don't like that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat this, well, this way, and try and get a little bit of those out. That makes that look a little sad. So, you know, just do this by eye. And nope, that looks really pathetic. You know, it doesn't have to be exact. It has to look right. That's all that matters. And there we go. Look, I've gotten a lot more of those triangles back. And that's a little off. But it's an aerial, so it's going to be off. You know, I think that's usable, and I've got a lot more of what was chopped off back, and that's important to me. My next thing is I'm going to look at that far skyline, and that looks like my vertical, or my horizontal, I guess that's what those are called. There we go. I think that looks really good. All right, so we've got the adjustments I need back in Lightroom. Now let's go back into Photoshop. Here's where I start doing, because we had it in Edit Original when we wanted all those layers so that we could re-edit it, we need to change it back to Edit with Lightroom Adjustments now so that we can have it with all the adjustments we just made. As I said, this is a commercial image, so I'm going to go crazy getting rid of things in this. Anything I consider a distraction or something I don't like, take a good look at this image. You know, just let your eye scan over it, see where your eye rests and where it stops. And if that's not on this pool, those umbrellas, that backyard, I want to get rid of it. Typically, the things I look for are things that are red or things that are white, things that are bright. So I'm going to go through this and take care of things like that. The first thing is this satellite dish. Usually these are so far and so small in the background and so far in the background that the spot healing tool is going to just work it just perfect. And, you know, it's just going to take the time to cover these things with it. And, you know, that's perfectly fine. As long as I'm getting in here on these, I'm going to get rid of, you know, all these little things. And the clone brush tool makes this really easy. I don't have to worry too much about it. That's going to pull the eye, and look at that. That's close enough. Nobody's ever going to know that I did that. If you don't like it, Control Z, and get out of it. Make your brush smaller and only attack the thing you want to attack. But you know, things like this, it's not much, but it makes the difference in, I feel, it makes the difference in commercial images when you can present a very clean image with no distractions and nothing that draws the eye away from where you want people to look. When I do things like Airbnbs and stuff like that, I'll do this in the rooms too. I'll remove light sockets, things like that. My feeling about Airbnbs is, you know, that's somebody's vacation. They don't want to see the ordinary. So take out the trash cans, take out the, you know, anything that makes you look or makes you think about the ordinariness of life, you know, because you're selling a fantasy. You're selling a perfect world, and so make that a perfect world. This stop sign obviously has to go. That was really drawing the eye. And since I'm in here, I'll take that yield sign out. I'm taking these spots on the road out. There's no reason, whoops, that was a mistake. Didn't look bad, but you know, and I'll just keep going back here. Yeah, let's get rid of those. We don't need those. Those are bright. Those will draw the eye. So, you know, I may spend 20 minutes doing this on a big commercial account because I get paid for doing this. You know, this is what they want, and, you know, why not? Let's see. Okay, this is our subject house, so I have to clean this one up too. Maybe I'll just go back to the Benny Hill theme and finish doing this. All right, there we go. Now let's take a look at that and see. It's a lot of work for not a whole lot of return, but it does really just clean things up, I think, and just makes it look more like you want it to. So there we go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a crop on this, and so we bring that in right to that edge right there and bring this up right about there, and then I think we can bring this in right to about there. And actually, you know what, let's go right about there. I think that looks pretty good. Now here's something else a lot of people do not do, either in real estate photography, landscape photography, every photography. And I think this is so super important. Once you have your final crop and you know that this is going to be your edges, you need to do what I call policing your edges. There's a few things to note. Up here, there's a little bit of waggle, or whatever you want to call it, left from when we did our straightening and our cropping. That we can just easily fix with just surround it. You know, that's just an easy sky piece. So go like that, edit, content aware fill, and just fill it in. That's even a bigger piece of sky than that would work really well with this. And then I hit F3, which combines it all in one layer, and I deselect. So now we're back to a full layer. The other thing, you know, look for things that hang off or compromise your edges. Like this. That's horrible. If you turned that in, nobody would probably notice or say anything, but you know what? That is horrible photographer technique. You should have nice clean edges that don't have things hanging off the sides of them. Every thought in your image should be a complete thought. Why did I do that? You know, down here, this tree right there. Look at that. That makes a horrible edge to your image. I think that should take care of it. See, it's that easy to fix. Look at that. That's horrible. And this, it's too bright in an otherwise dark area. Just get rid of it. I don't know what that is, but let's get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead and leave this, I think. Take out some of the white parts of it. Let's see. This doesn't bother me. It's so far in the background that it really doesn't work. This is kind of cool. This is an island called Antelope Island. I may go out there later this afternoon, actually. That's what my wife wants to do. But it's an island out in the Salt Lake. That is the Salt Lake out there. And these are called the Ochre Mountains. See, I'm not just a photographer. I'm a tour guide. I forgot I'm looking at edges, aren't I? Yeah, do this for all your images. Always go through and police those edges so that you have nice, clean edges. Let's fit that back on screen. And there we go. I might do some more fidgeting. I'm definitely going to add a vignette to this, I think. I think it could use a vignette. Maybe just a vignette from the bottom. Like, let me show you how to do that. That's kind of cool. Let's add a curves layer. Notice that the curves layer automatically comes with a white mask. And that's okay for adjusting it. I used to not understand curves. Why would anybody use curves? I don't know. This is why. Grab the hand. Come down here where this is. And when you click on that, that grabs that color or that part of the picture, that contrast in the picture. And as you bring it up, it lightens it. And you can see on the diagram, it brings that up. And if you go this way, it brings it down. I think we grabbed too dark an area. So let's grab this and bring this down. And of course, it's not working because there we go. There we go. There. Okay, but that darkened the whole picture. So once we've got this area, we're just looking at these trees to make a vignette with. We look at all this and we get that to where we want it, ignoring what it did to the rest of the picture. And then we just click on that mask and we hit Command or Control I, which inverts it. Now it's black. It has no effect at all. Then we go back to a brush and we get a nice big brush. We make it white. By the way, to make it black or white, hit D. That gives you your default black and white. And then you can hit X to go back and forth between black and white. Anyway, so we've got a black mask. We paint white on it right in here. And then that will darken this area. And maybe darken that area and maybe... So this is like a custom vignette, so that we're just vignetting the parts we want. So let's see what it looks like. Before, after, before, after. It's really subtle, but that's all you need, you know, again, to direct that eye just to the center. And I think that's, by and large, a pretty good image there. I think we've done what we've set out to do. We've done more than we set out to do. We've made that sun look good. We've removed a lot of distractions. We've made the focus exactly where we want it. And I think we've made a compelling and a pretty image. So there you go. You know, as always, if you have any questions on anything that I've done, please let me know. I'm more than happy to, you know, get on DMs or emails with you and discuss what I did. If you have a better way of doing it, let me know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.